Broadsword calling Danny Boy.
Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Today, another game of interplanetary I Spy going on here. We're looking at Sol 120. This is the large Shaler Outcrop image, which will, the best one to get is the TIFF, obviously, but the JPEG's pretty good. I'll have the link to this in my description as usual, so you can download it yourself and have a look. Right, let's crack straight on with it. Let's not linger on that too long. I want to try and keep this short, this video. I promised to try and keep it a bit shorter than some of my recent ones. I may do another one on this in a day or two with just a few of the small clips in, which will only be like two minutes long, with some extra comparisons and extra images. So if I find anything else in here in the next 24 hours, I'll put that in as well. Okay, right, this is the image. It's pretty large, but not enormous. It's something like 20,000 pixels wide, and it's pretty good. A lot of people have got confused with this image because they've found objects and things in here, and they've said they're really big and they're tiny little people in here. I haven't found any yet, but what I have found is some skulls, and I've made a quick image map here for you. I'll show you this. This is, you see these little yellow patches in here. This is just an image map for me to re-find anything that I've already found. This is always good practice with these things. It's just to go around. If you find anything interesting, just select it, select the area, and then change the color of it, or do something to it so you can re-find what you've already found. Because it's easy to get lost with some of these images because there's so many rocks on the ground. It can be a bit difficult to navigate your way around, and if you haven't looked at an image for about a year or so, like I have with this one, it can be very hard to re-find stuff. So it's always good to do this. You can do it any way you like. You can just put a letter on there, or just draw a box, or whatever. You can just draw a little circle, or whichever way you like, but it's always good. I have done quite a few videos on this particular image before. There's a dinosaur up here, which I showed in my previous video. This is, I think, published about a year ago. This is like a very small Tarbosaurus or T-Rex type of dinosaur just here. His eye there and his mouth. But to see more on that, you'll have to go back to some of my other videos. We're not concentrating on that today. There's also a lizard skull here, which looks a bit like possibly a crocodilian type of skull. Eye socket here. Yep, that's in the same video as the dinosaur, so go back and have a look at that if you want to. There's not tons of stuff in this image, but there is quite a lot. In some parts there's some interesting things. Unfortunately, they're very small. The scale on this is quite hard to get your head around, but there is on their website, I think there is a ruler version of this with a sort of ruler drawn across the middle of it here, which may or may not be accurate, but I don't think it's that far off. I don't know. That'll give you a rough idea. But size doesn't really matter. It does in some ways, because obviously if the objects are very small, like this one here, it's very hard to determine what they are because there's less pixels covering that particular object. This is why a lot of people do struggle with a lot of stuff on Mars, because a lot of these skulls and artifacts and bones and bits of wreckage are very, very small. And even though this image hasn't been badly resized and compressed or whatever, and had a lot of the data destroyed like most of the Mastcam images have, if something's only about a couple of inches wide, it's not going to give you much detail, very much like this one here. So I'll show you what I've done with some of these. I've clipped out some of these things and I've enhanced them for you to try and drag out as much detail as possible, which isn't always easy when it's an artifact or skull that's only a couple of inches wide, 2 or 3 inches. So, I mean, some of these may be a bit bigger than that, but they really are very small. These are small apes or small creatures, and There are quite a few animal skulls in this image if you look for long enough and carefully enough. Hang on, here we go. Now, which one should we look at first? Right, let's go with this one first. Now, this one, if we find the image map, I'll see if I can find it for you, is up the top somewhere. Where is he? Have I even marked it on here? There he is. Okay, there he is. I've outlined it in the yellow selection there, just so I can find it again. Right near the dinosaur here. Here's the dinosaur, the Tarbosaurus or whatever it is, just there. And this is an ape skull, or at least it looks like an ape skull. It may not be an ape, but it certainly looks like one to me. Not dissimilar, in fact, to a baboon or some kind of Earth-like ape. And this is unenhanced. All I've done is turn that yellow. I haven't actually enhanced this at all. This is the raw image. So let's try and find it on this one. Okay, I'll zoom into there. If you hear any hissing noise, that's just my fan going on the laptop, so don't worry about that. Right, so it's right up there, up here somewhere. So you can't even always find it when you do an image map. These are such large images, some of these. It's right at the top. Where is he? Where is he? There. Okay. There we got him. There we go. Right, that's completely raw. Now, the mouth is pretty clear on this here. You can see this mouth. There's a nose here. And you can just about, I'll zoom in, just about make out two eyes here. See them? They're in heavy shadow. Obviously, the very, very pronounced brow ridges here. And the very dark shadow here where the orbits are. Very deep set eyes, much like you would expect to see on a type of baboon. I've got some other creatures here to compare from Earth. Look at the long nose, long snout, deep set eyes going right back. See that? Here's a skull here, baboon skull. Look out, they've got a long snout here, big teeth. Quite a small skull in the back, and very, very pronounced brow ridges here. So, if this was lit from behind, like we have on Mars here, the eyes would be in deep shadow, and look very deep set. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Of course, it may not be. It could just be a rock, but I'm finding a lot of animal skulls up there, and I've found quite a few apes actually recently. This is one I've only just found today or yesterday. I think last night I found this one. I decided to go back over this image and have another look, because you always miss stuff. There's always more to see, especially in these large panoramic images. There's always lots more. You just got to take your time and be meticulous. Let's quickly show you one I found recently. This is the giant ape skull that I found only about a week or so ago. Refer to my previous image videos for this one. Mars giant ape hairy gorilla skull. Now, it's not a gorilla, of course, because it's on Mars. They probably don't have gorillas, or if they do, they wouldn't be the same as ours. And this one isn't the same as any of ours. It's much, much bigger. Has a much more elongated skull, like some of the humanoid skulls I've found up there. They're very large, elongated. Of course, having less gravity on Mars, it would have been more possible to have a larger brain capacity because of the weight issue. Now, humans actually have very large brains, but they're not as large as some of our ancestors had. Neanderthals had larger brains than us, and had a larger skull and a higher brain capacity. And this creature here has got a very large skull, and looks to be some kind of ape or gorilla type creature. Has very thick brow. Look at the brow ridges here, very, very pronounced brow ridge there, which is typical of a great ape, like a gorilla or that kind of thing. I'm not saying it is a gorilla, just saying it's similar to. It's bigger, much bigger than the gorilla from Earth, that one. It's approximately 1.5 to 2 or even 3 times the size. I haven't worked out the exact scale of this, but it's at least 3 or 4 times the size of a human skull, so it's very big, very big. So I just thought I'd show that to you, in case you haven't seen that video. I'll just let it play a little bit. This is a blue filter on it here. Here's a humanoid skull from Mars, which also has the telltale elongated skull, very large elongated cranium here. This is enhanced, obviously. I just thought I'd throw that in because a lot of the skulls do seem to be very large, and sort of out of proportion in many ways to what we would expect. But this is Mars, so this one doesn't seem to have, although it's partially buried. We're only seeing the front of this, the mouth, eyes and brow ridges, and the back of the skull is obscured because it's kind of sitting in the sand. So we don't know how far back that skull goes. I mean, it's approximately, I would say, I mean, this is probably only about 10 to 20 centimeters across. I mean, it's not very big. I estimated this dinosaur one to be about a foot long, which may or may not be correct. That may be out by a few inches. Can't really tell exactly. So this is quite small. This could only be 5 or 6 inches long, something like that. Don't know, but it's not big. Okay, so it's a small, averagely sized kind of monkey skull. So let's have a look at the enhancements I've done. I've cut it out, and I'll go one step by step here. It's getting closer to that, so you can really see. It's not bad. It's not bad detail here. You can just about make the eyes out here, and the nose and mouth is quite clear. Okay, so let's move that out of the way. We don't need that one. I'll go through each step I've taken to show you the enhancements. This is done so that people on mobiles can see it, because obviously a lot of this stuff is a bit vague, and I've got to kind of really highlight stuff to really make it stand out. Now I've just drawn around it here and changed the colour temperature, and I blurred it a bit to get rid of the pixelation. And you can still just about make out 2 eyes there, and the nose and mouth still very clear. It looks like what might be a sort of bit of ear detail just here on the side. But of course, this hasn't been sharpened yet. That's been blurred to get rid of the pixelation, so you're not going to see a great deal more detail in that until it's sharpened, like this one. Now I've manually sharpened this to bring out some of the detail. Now it's broken. The image is broken up slightly, because when you sharpen something heavily, it will start to break up the JPEG, or even a TIFF image will break up eventually. JPEGs break up very, very quickly. This one isn't too bad. So yeah, there we go, and that's about as much detail as I can squeeze out of this guy. And if you get too close to it, it doesn't get any sharper. This is about the optimum sort of zoom level. So yeah, I've lightened it up a little bit in that shadow there to bring the eyes out, and I've sharpened up the nose and mouth detail here. The ear seems a bit vague. Can't really quite work out what's going on there. That may not be an ear. That may be a little piece of rock in front of it where it's kind of sitting in the dirt. Not really sure. But there is some interesting detail in here, and the nose and mouth I thought was quite convincing. It's one of the best sort of nose and mouth configurations I've found on an alien skull so far. I mean, and like many of the other skulls that I've found, it does seem to have fleshy material still left on it, and is in a very, very good state of preserve, which either means that it's not very old, or that the conditions on Mars have just frozen it and freeze-dried it extremely well, and it could have been there for tens of thousands of years. Don't know. Still don't know the answer to that yet until we get the truth about what the actual atmosphere is like on Mars, because I do think we've been lied to about some of the details about the levels of oxygen and some of the temperatures. Maybe not the temperatures, but there's a few things that don't quite add up on Mars, that we've been kind of spoon-fed for decades by NASA and various other organisations, and I do think they're probably lying about quite some major details about the Martian surface and about the level of water up there, and the level of oxygen and that sort of thing. I mean, these creatures may never have breathed oxygen for all we know. They could have a very, very different respiratory system, as I've said before in previous videos. Okay, so that kind of covers that one. All these edits will be at the end of the video. There was one or two other things. I seem to have lost some of them. Let's go with this one. There we go. There he is. Right, now this is a weird one. This is very small again. This is probably only a 2 or 3 inches across. Very small find, this one. I think it's near the middle here, just here. There he is. Now there's lots of other strange looking rocks around here, but most of them are just rocks. This may well be a rock. I'm not 100% sure about this at all, so don't crucify me for saying this is some kind of alien skull, because it may not be. But one thing I did find very odd about it is this seems to have hair coming off of it. Long hair. Now this may be a rock that has some kind of plant growth on it, some kind of moss or some kind of plant growing on it. I have found others, and often some of these skulls seem to have hair, much like the giant ape skull that I showed you a minute ago. Let's go back a little bit from there. Let's go back to there. There we go. See, this seems to have hair, and is in a very good state of preserve. And a lot of the skulls I found up on Mars still seem to have body hair, and usually very short hair like this, quite dense. But some I found have quite long hair. I don't know if there's any in here. I can't. This is another skull I found. This looks more like a meerkat skull. Another very small one. I thought I'd show you that just to compare it. Just let that play through a little bit. And as with many of these things, when you zoom in, they don't get any clearer. But this was from the large rock nest image, and looks like a small meerkat type skull, that kind of thing, or perhaps a very small ape. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of different types of apes on Earth, and if there are apes on Mars, or were apes on Mars, I would expect there to be quite a few varieties and species. Right, so let's have a look at this. This is untreated. This has just been clipped out straight out of the image raw. Okay, nothing done to that whatsoever, so that's as it comes. As I said, the image is pretty good. It's not brilliant, but it does look very much like hair. Long hair growing down, or cascading off the back of this thing. And this looks a bit like an eye here in the middle. And this could be perhaps a nose or something. It's very hard to say, and even when you enhance this, I'll show an enhancement of it. I brighten this right up. It's not possible to really get a lot of detail out of this because it's too small. Simple. If it was bigger or a lot closer, we might be better off, but we're not. It's unfortunately very small. It's only a couple of inches long, possibly even smaller. It could only be like 1 or 2 inches, even really small. And when you really sharpen it too hard, the picture starts to break up. You can see these little white lines coming out now. So that doesn't really help either. But you can kind of get rid of some of that by blurring. There's the hair at the back. I've drawn around that quite carefully. There's definitely something hanging down from it, and it's not just rock. So either it's a rock with something growing on it, or it's a skull with hair still on it. So I don't think anyone could really describe a rock as having hair or stuff kind of growing off it like that. Not just a dry, dead rock. It doesn't seem possible to me. Let's blur that a little bit. It's always good if you're gonna sharpen these things up. They do start to break up, and if you blur them a little bit, then it tends to smooth them down a little bit, just to help a little bit, and it kind of squashes the image back together again and compresses it slightly. So there we go. I'm really not sure with this one. It's very, very small, and it's hard to tell what's going on here. There seems to be something maybe a tooth sticking out here and one here as well. I just noticed that. See those? There and there. They could be construed as canine teeth. Don't know. Too vague, too small. Shame, really. I'd like to get closer to this one. I may look through the Sol 120 set and see if I can find it in there, and I may be able to get it a bit closer to it. Don't know. It depends whether this panoramic was taken from the right or left Mastcam, and because obviously the left one's higher resolution. So I may do that if I can find it, and if I can enhance it anymore. I don't think I'm going to get a great deal of joy out of that because it's too small. Now there was one other thing. I seem to have lost some of my images here. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Let's move some of these out of the way. I've had a look at them already. But yeah, this was the cool one really. The kind of baboon looking thing. Let's have another quick look at that in a minute. Let's get these out of the way. I've just gone and covered up all the ones I was trying to find. That's the final one. Let's have a quick zoom in on that. Okay. Pretty clear, I think. No sign of any hair on this one. No sign of any hair at all. Ignore the colour there. I mean, that's I've warmed the colour temperature up just so you can see that. So that is not the true colour of the object. Okay? That isn't the colour. It's actually fairly similar colour to all the surrounding sand and rock, like many things are on Mars. They're all kind of covered in a bit of dust and stuff. There's the real colour. That's what the actual colour as it comes. And you probably wouldn't really know it was there unless you stumbled on it by accident, like I did almost. So there you go. So make of that what you will. Okay, right, there was another little thing here. Now this is really small also. So we're never going to get an amazing amount of detail out of this, but it is a bit closer. Now this on the source image, I think was, let's move that out of the way. Was right down here somewhere. Right down lower centre of the image. Hang on, where's my image map? I can't find it right now because I've lost the image map. Oh dear. There he is. Right, okay. He's sitting on a rock right in the centre of the image, lower centre. There he is. Tiny little thing. Only probably an inch or two across. Again, very small. Very small indeed. It could be 3 inches, could be 1 inch. Can't tell you. Really have no idea what size that is exactly, but it's very small. Like many of the skulls that are in this image are. They are very small indeed. But being closer, there's a little bit more detail to be had here. It may not be a skull, of course, it could be a rock, but it does seem to have an eye socket and a nasal cavity here, and some teeth there sticking out, and an elongated, sort of enlarged cranium, like some of the other aliens I found. So it could be. Here's an enhancement. I've just selected it and brightened it right up. Smoothed it a little bit. Nasal cavity, teeth, eye socket. Okay. Here's another enhancement. This is probably one of the last ones I did, where I've actually drawn around it and enhanced it and upped the colour temperature. I've dropped the background. Oh, someone's at the door. Okay. I'll ignore that. So yes, basically that is about as much detail as I could squeeze out of this little thing. It's only small, so you're never going to get a great deal out here. The background was grayscaled there, and I've just turned the colour temperature down to get a blue sort of filter to it. Okay, so there we have it. It looks very much like a very small alien skull, and I took a bit of time on this to try and bring out the detail around the nose and eye here. I've kind of lightened that a little bit for you. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting one anyway, and these do look like teeth here sticking out, but this is really small. This is literally only a couple of inches. So there you go. I will put these in at the end of the video, and you can see them and pause them and have a good look at them. I'll stick them on the end. Okay, that was about it for this. So yes, there are probably many more small and possibly giant ape skulls and alien skulls to come. If these are anything to go by, there's probably an awful lot more. So do check out my previous videos on ape skulls. I've done a sort of series of Mars small alien animal skulls, and there's the giant ape, and there's monkeys and stuff, monkey skulls and humanoid skulls, all sorts of different skulls of different shapes and sizes. Also lots of other mammal skulls and rodent skulls and all that sort of thing. So do check them out, and I will see you soon.